All right, we're now recording. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting. We do have a number of apologies. Councillor Flynn, Robert Clark and Sarah Lacey. This is our first meeting under new management, as it were. So Gail, I think we all know Gail from a previous post, but Gail is now here as Chief Officer. And Marie is joining us for the first time as Chief Finance Officer. So welcome, Marie. I can just about see you in the background there. So are there any declarations of interest in relation to any of today's items? Nope, not seeing anything. Can we move then to the minute of our last meeting, which was back on the 1st of March? Run through for accuracy. Is there anything in what in the pack is page 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? Okay, we're happy to agree those as an accurate record. I didn't have any matters arising that would come up elsewhere on today's agenda. Did anyone else have anything they want to raise at this stage? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to item 4 then, which is the strategic risk register. Marie, you're going to take us through this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This paper, we're asking the committee to consider and comment on the high-level summary of the strategic risk register presented at section 4.1, and also to consider and comment on the detailed strategic risk register. This report provides an update on the strategic risk register. No new risks have been added to the register since the last report was presented to Audit Committee in March. There are currently 9 live risks recorded. 2 are considered to be very high risk, being primary care sustainability and financial sustainability, which was increased at the last reporting cycle from high to very high, with a further 6 assessed as high risk and 1 as medium. The detailed register is at Appendix 1. The risk scores remain unchanged since last cycle, and a few considerations are as follows. For financial sustainability risk number 1, the level of savings of a non-recurring nature being utilised to balance the 24/5 budget at 4.090 million, and the level of savings which are RAG rated red being 7.1 million, including 6.248 million in relation to set-aside budget for large hospital services are of particular note and present a risk on an ongoing basis. For risk number 6, the new Care and Support at Home Framework Agreement has recently been put in place with a significantly higher number of providers for both care at home and supported living, and work is ongoing in relation to contract mobilisation and the escalation processes for providers. Most of these processes are now firmed up and we're just awaiting final agreement with relevant stakeholders. Risk number 7 in relation to whole system transformation has been updated to reflect the reporting arrangements now in place between the Digital Health and Care Programme Board and the Transformation Board. And risk 9, the primary care sustainability risk description has been amended as part of an ongoing focused review. Review meetings have been held in April and a paper is due to NHS Staff Governance Committee in June. The risks held in the register will continue to be reviewed on a regular basis by SLT, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Marie. Just on that last point on risk 9, the primary care sustainability. So the recommendation coming from Staff Governance Committee, which will go to full board, is to reduce that risk from 20 to 15. So it may be worth, once that goes through the board, having a chat with the risk manager at NHS Forth Valley just to ensure consistency across the system.
Yes, happy to do that. Sorry, Gordon, when you said it was going to be reduced from 20 to, I missed what you'd said there. It cut off slightly when you'd said the rate.
To 15.
Okay, thank you.
So 3 and 5 rather than 4 and 5.
Yeah, happy to pick that up. Thanks.
Okay. I didn't have any other issues with this paper. The rest, as you've said, have stayed pretty static. we know financial sustainability is a very high risk, and we're aware of the position there that comes through in a number of the papers today, not surprisingly. Did anyone else have any questions or comments to make? No. Okay, happy to accept that paper then. We move on then to item 5, which is the internal audit report. Jocelyn, I think you're taking us through this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this paper is to present section 1 of the 23-24 annual internal audit report. So this is effectively the front end of the full annual report, which is going to be issued tomorrow. We're just tidying that up at the moment, having completed all the field work. So that'll go to management for factual accuracy check and for responses to recommendations. Section 1 of the report includes the executive summary, the audit opinion, the key themes and the key developments. And as I say, all our fieldwork is complete, so we're able to provide that to you today. And we're just really doing that kind of proofreading at the moment. So just by way of background in the annual report, what it does is it provides you with a holistic overview of governance within the IJB. So we have a checklist for our fieldwork that covers all systems of internal control across corporate, clinical, staff, financial and information governance. And so this report is providing you with that overall assurance on arrangements for risk management, governance and control. So as I said, we're just going through the issuing process, and as soon as we have that report finalised, it'll be issued to members, and then it'll come back again to this committee in September in full. So I just wanted to briefly highlight some points within the report. Firstly, action to address 6 of the 7 recommendations from last year's annual report have passed their target completion dates. So what we'll do is we'll agree revised dates for those, and we'll keep monitoring progress with those throughout the year. I think it's fair to say that many of the themes and the findings from our previous annual reports, really particularly in relation to monitoring delivery of strategy and transformation, as well as the flow of assurances over risks, remain relevant. So really I'm saying that there are some fundamental issues that do remain. What we have recommended is that these are collated and prioritised into a plan so that they can be addressed systematically. And we've had a discussion with Marie about that, and we're aware that that's already a plan development and is really in train at the moment. And just to say that as part of that, there are several key governance documents that need to be reviewed and updated and aligned to the new integration scheme when that's in place. So just touching on some of the themes identified in our report, we've talked about the widely reported difficulties in the external environment. These are things we all know about, increased demand, an ageing population, widening health inequalities, and of course the significant and unprecedented financial challenge, as well as workforce pressures in the face of that increased demand. These are things that are faced by all public sector organisations. And I think we're really just warning that difficult decisions and prioritisations lie ahead. Once we get into the detail of the report, you'll see that we're very clear that financial considerations need to be at the heart of every decision. And we've talked a lot about having that clear focus on transformation and doing things differently. Within the report, we've noted the change in leadership, as we've already talked about this morning. And again, just highlighting that update of the integration scheme will be a key focus for 24-25. And just as always, I'd really emphasise the importance of working well in partnership, and everyone fulfilling their role in that true spirit of integration. So in terms of the formal conclusion, I have concluded that reliance can be placed on the IJB's governance arrangements and systems of internal controls for 23-24. I have not advised management of any concerns around consistency of the governance statement with information we are aware of from our work. No concerns around the format and content of the governance statement in relation to relevant guidance, and I can confirm that all relevant issues have been disclosed. So that's all I really wanted to highlight from the report, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jocelyn. No, I think that's a a very fair summary of where we are. Fundamentally, things are sound, but there are a number of issues there that will need to be addressed over the next year. And I think quite a number of them will come out of the review of the integration scheme, as you've mentioned. I don't know, Gail, Marie, is there anything you want to add to that? Gail?
Yeah, just to confirm, also feel that it's quite a fair summary, and certainly in terms of that focus on transformation and financial sustainability and having clear deliverable plans will be a key priority. It is a key priority for myself and Marie and the senior management team going forward. So that will become more clear to IJB and reported to IJB in due course. There's a lot of planning work going on at the moment.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Gail. Okay, happy then to note this report, and that the full report will come back to committee in September. Thank you, Jocelyn. Back onto the main pack then. Item 6, the annual audit plan, Marie.
Yeah, thank you. So the committee has been requested to note the contents of this report. This is the second year of a 5-year appointment for Audit Scotland as our external auditor for the IJB. The plan is attached to Appendix 1 and sets out the planned approach to the audit of the IJB's annual accounts for 23-24 financial year, and also for the wider value aspects for the audit. The main aims of the planned audit work are set out in section 4.2, including audit of the annual accounts themselves, and the management commentary, the governance statement and the remuneration report contained within the accounts. They also consider wider scope areas such as financial sustainability and leadership and governance, best value and the annual performance report. Page 11 of the audit plan sets out the timeline, and I want to highlight the expected dates noted by Audit Scotland for completion of the audit work and sign-off. They've intimated to the interim CFO that their work is planned to be completed by the 15th of November 2024. This is later than the normal guideline dates of 30th of September, but prior to my arrival, the interim CFO met with Audit Scotland to express concern around the dates, but in view of the extensive work that they have to be completed, they've confirmed that this timeline can't be updated at this time, and they have notified and confirmed that to us in writing. So it was just to note that. Finally, as noted at 5.1, the agreed audit fee for 23-24 audit work is £33,360. Thanks, I'm happy to take any questions, and I know Pauline's here as well if there's anything arises from the paper.
Thanks, Marie. Pauline, anything you want to add to that?
Thank you. Just to say at the outset that the plan before you today is obviously coming much later than we would expect it to be. Our desire would have been for it to come to you in your March meeting. However, as was alluded to there, there were a number of discussions between the audit team and the interim CFO around the proposed timetable for this year, recognising that it is significantly later than it was last year. So we were not able to agree the timetable in advance of papers being issued for the March committee, which is why it's coming to you in June, which is obviously not ideal, given we're far past the year end. You'll see as the papers with the plan, a number of letters. So a letter from myself as the appointed auditor to Mark Fairley, and also a letter representing Audit Scotland's view from the Executive Director of Audit Services that just essentially outlines the process of prioritisation that we have put in place this year in order for us to bring our timetables back to something resembling the pre-COVID timetables, which I think would agree that we're all keen to do. And as part of that, unfortunately, it's meant that some audits have had to be pushed slightly back further than they would have been, just to enable some of the prioritised audits. So I included in my letter an example of a prioritised audit. So I'm also the appointed auditor for a Falkirk Pension Fund, and that has to be signed off first in order for me to give assurances to members of that fund. So that just gives you a flavour of the type of prioritisation that we're having to do. It's not ideal, and I know management and members are are not particularly happy with the proposed timetable, but I would hope that you would take my assurances that we'll try to make the audit progress as smoothly as we can, and certainly work towards all the dates and timetables that we've set out in the plan, and hopefully over the next year or so we'll gradually start bringing those dates forward in an incremental fashion. That was all I'd planned to say. I'm happy to take any questions on the plan. You'll see there that we have, it's the same format it is in previous years. We outline Exhibit 2, the significant risks and material misstatement that we've identified for the audit as part of our annual risk assessment and planning process. There are no additional risks in there that members wouldn't have seen in previous years. We include the standard ISA 240 risk around management override of controls, and you'll see in the exhibit that we outline all the various audit procedures that we carry out to assure ourselves over that risk. When I come back to you later in the year in November with my annual audit report, we'll outline the findings of that work, and then also any findings in relation to those 4 areas of wider code work that we carry out as part of public sector audit. I wasn't proposing to say any more. I think the plan's quite straightforward, but I'm happy to take any questions on the content of the plan, or certainly any comments or questions about the proposed timetable. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. No, the plan seems very much along standard lines. Obviously, it's account season, so I've seen several of these in the last week with different bodies. I think the delay is unfortunate, and I understand you need to prioritise, but I think it does leave us in a bit of a difficult position not having accounts through till November. However, I know there have been discussions, and kind of that's where we are. So I think we just need to get it on for now. I mean, are there any implications in terms of submission of accounts to government, etc., with the completion date not expected till November? Is there anything we need to know about there?
No, there are no implications for the board in terms of the deadline. You'll appreciate across Audit Scotland that prioritisation will be across the board, so we don't expect any of our bodies to be signing off early. So they'll all follow the standard process. So typically NHS bodies are done first because those are consolidated into Scottish Government accounts, and then we follow on agencies, local authorities, pension funds, and IGBs. So that process will follow through in all of Audit Scotland's audits. So you're not alone in being later and being signed off. So there are no adverse implications for the board. No.
Okay, thank you for that. On that basis, then, happy to note the report, and we'll see the final accounts coming through in due course. Thank you. Okay, moving on then. Agenda item 7 is the unaudited accounts. Is that yourself again, Marie?
Yes, it is. Thanks. Thanks, Chair. The committee are being asked to consider the annual accounts, the unaudited accounts, sorry, note the public inspection period, and note that the unaudited annual accounts will be submitted to the IJB's external auditor by the statutory deadline of 30th of June. We're required, in accordance with the Local Authority Accounts Scotland regulations, to submit the IJB unaudited accounts for the year to 31st of March 2024 to the external auditor by the statutory deadline of the 30th of June 2024. It's also required that the committee, whose remit includes audit and governance functions, must meet to consider the accounts prior to submission. There is also a public inspection period required over a 3-week time frame, which will commence tomorrow, 19th of June. I would ask the committee to note that a few typographical errors have been fixed in the annual governance section, and I've also asked Jim to share on screen on final review of the accounts document that's been circulated. There are 3 sentences which I've updated just to give a bit of an update around work in the improvements section of the annual governance statement. So at page 82 in your pack, so the annual governance section starts at page 79 in the pack. And since coming into post, I've reviewed the statements and updated a few comments as follows. At page 82, under Ministerial Strategic Group comments, around halfway down the page, and it's highlighted in yellow there, I've added the comments, apologies, to reflect some early considerations undertaken and the intention to move this forward during 24-25 as part of the review of the IJB governance arrangements. And then at the bottom of the page, in relation to the Audit Committee self-assessment, to state the intention to consider the recommendations along with the IJB governance arrangements review, as noted in item 8, still to come in the agenda. And finally, I've added a comment to also state my intention to perform a review of the directions arrangements, also highlighted in yellow there on screen, during 24-25. So those are 3 very slight changes to the sentences, just to give updates on the current position. So if the committee are agreeable to those changes, I would like to issue the final revised copy to external audit, including those changes highlighted. Going back to the covering report, apologies, I noted that as just discussed around the November deadline date, at 4.4, the covering report mentions the date of September for submission, but obviously we've just discussed that that's going to be November, so I'd just like to note that that is a change. By way of a verbal update on the final unaudited annual financial position, the final overspend on the integrated budget was 2.6 million, with a further 7.9 on the set aside managed by the NHS Forth Valley. An overspend of 3.4 million arose in social care, with the main pressures in relation to care at home, residential care agency staffing and demand. Within health, primary care showed an overspend of 3.3 million, mainly related to the prescribing budget. And in community health care showed a year-end due to underspends and staffing throughout services and recurring development funding not utilised during the year, all of which have been noted in the monitoring reports throughout the year. The unaudited account shows an overall movement in reserves of 7.6 million, with a final reserves balance of 21.3 million reported as at 31st of March 24, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Yeah, those additions do add to the report. They're all pieces of work I'm aware of, so I think it is helpful to have them noted. So I think with what you've said, you've pretty much answered the questions I have written in front of me, so that's fine. On that basis, happy to note the report and agree those amendments for forwarding on, as you said. Anyone else have any points before we move on? No. Okay. Find my place in the papers. We're on to item 8, which I think is yourself again, Marie.
Yes, thanks, Chair. So this is the Audit Committee Annual Assurance Statement. The committee are being asked, my apologies, to note the contents of the report and approve the report. It presents the annual assurance statement for approval, which will then be reported to IJB as part of the annual governance assurance process. This report also provides assurance to internal audit as part of their annual report, as previously mentioned. The annual assurance statement is part of the IJB's governance framework, giving assurance that the strategic priority delivery is supported and that operational and strategic risks are managed effectively. The statement is set out Appendix 1 and shows the attendance, dates and business of the committee during the financial year, and it concludes that the Audit Committee has effectively discharged its duties during the year to March 2024. I'm happy to take any questions on the content of the report.
Thanks, Marie. No, it's fairly straightforward, standard report, factual report, so I didn't have any questions or issues with that, unless anyone else has anything they want to raise. No, okay, happy to agree that then and move on to item 9, which is National Audit Report and Inspection Overview.
Chair, the committee are being asked to consider and comment on the content of this report. The report, being a standing item, gives an overview of the national audit, scrutiny and inspection reports published since the March Audit Committee, and to allow members to highlight if they deem that more detailed consideration of any of these items is required. The national reports are noted at section 4, NHS in Scotland 2023, setting out the financial challenges faced by health boards. NHS Forth Valley Annual Audit 22-23, published by Audit Scotland, showing that Forth Valley continue to have effective budget setting and monitoring arrangements in place, achieving financial balance in 22-23. and had unadjusted annual accounts. Also consistent within other areas, the reliance on non-recurring savings was highlighted as unsustainable. It also makes reference to the escalation process, which has been responded to positively by the board. The best value audit for Falkirk Council, which highlights substantial improvements since the previous report in 2022, and acknowledging that there is more work to do. It naturally highlights the significant financial challenges faced by the council and the challenges it will face in making recurring savings. It also notes improvement in collaborative leadership and performance reporting. Inspection reports are noted at section 5 and notes that these will all be reported to the Clinical and Care Governance Committee on the 21st of June, shortly after the date. I don't propose to get into any detail on these reports. The links are in the agenda if there are any questions, and I'm happy to take any questions on that report. Thanks.
Thanks. No, I've seen all of those main reports elsewhere, and yeah, we all know the financial position that we're in across the public sector, so there weren't any real surprises. Although the Audit Scotland report is somewhat frightening in terms of the kind of future projections. We know there are substantial savings to be made, or sorry, efficiencies. I must get my terminology right. We don't have savings anymore. It is a very large proportion of the budget that needs to be cut, and I think when we all read it, we all have the feeling of this isn't the first set of savings or cuts. We're cutting on a position that has been pared back over many years, so there are going to be real difficulties, I think, in balancing budgets this year. But unfortunately, that's where we are right now. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Pauline.
No, nothing. Just to highlight that as part of our annual audit, we'll report on, for example, financial sustainability in our annual audit report, and it will bring in all those contextual issues that you've mentioned there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on that basis, happy to note the report and move on then. So item 10 is the governance statement improvement actions. Marie.
Thank you. Committee are being asked to note the progress report on the improvement actions for the governance statement. So this report provides an update on implementation of governance statement actions identified through the annual governance statement and internal and external audit recommendations, and Appendix 1 gives a RAG status for each. Audit Committee previously agreed that regular updates should be provided as a standing item, and there are 3 broad categories for improvement: progress with integration scheme and MSG self-assessment. Since the previous committee, the NHS Chief Executive and the Chief Executive of Falkirk, Clackmannanshire and Stirling councils have agreed to review the integration scheme together. This is being progressed with external support, and the project team have met and drafted a timeline for agreement, resulting in the RAG status being updated to amber to reflect progress. And I know those meetings are ongoing and progress is being made, having attended a finance subcommittee as recently as yesterday. Audit Committee self-assessment is the next item. You will note that there has been an agenda item added in relation to this item, and Appendix 1 has been updated accordingly to note that work has happened, and that there will be recommendations coming back to the Audit Committee. Other internal and external audit reviews, I wouldn't propose to go through each in detail unless you would like me to go into any detail at all, but I'm happy to take any questions on that report as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the review of the integration scheme, obviously, and a number of things fall out of that. There are a substantial number of actions that are still in progress, so we will need to make sure over the next year that we do keep on top of them and do deliver, because some of them have been around for quite a while. But I'm content that there are plans in place to achieve those. So I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, yes.
Happy to agree with that then, unless anyone else wants to come in. No. Okay, item 11 then, strategic risk management performance report.
Thank you, Chair. Committee are being asked to approve the Strategic Risk Management Performance Report for the year to March 24. This report is to present the IJB Strategic Risk Management Performance Report for the period April 23 to March 2024 to provide assurance on the adequacy and effectiveness of risk management arrangements in place during that period, including an update on the IJB Risk Management Action Plan agreed by the IJB in June 2023. The report is attached as Appendix 1 and it includes the following. At Appendix 1.1, the HSCP Risk and Assurance Reporting Framework. The report draws on the most recent HSCP reports in relation to the items noted to Falkirk IJB, NHS Forth Valley and Falkirk Council, and notes that the IJB risk strategy is broadly aligned to the NHS Forth Valley risk strategy for consistency across integrated teams. Appendix 1.2, the key sources of assurance. The IJB's annual governance statement has been considered today as part of the annual accounts, noting reasonable assurance of the internal control environment. Appendix 1.3, summary of the IJB and partners' strategic risks. Risk registers are scrutinised by the HSCP and partners leadership teams and audit committees at least quarterly, with no new or deleted items during 23-24. Horizon scanning of emerging risks and challenges was included in reviews of IJB strategies, including the financial plan and the risk action plan, with improving risk considerations noted. And Appendix 1.4, Risk Management Action Plan. Substantial progress has been made on some areas, with others showing no progress to date or delays. SLT will require to agree revised timescales for completion of the remaining actions with support from partners risk advisors. And I'm happy to take any questions on that one as well.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Yeah, on Appendix 1.4 at number 4, the status of deep dive timetable is given as read, although it does say deep dives completed and presented September to December 24. So is the issue simply that the timescales have to be agreed for each one individually?
Yes, so that's part of the work. Obviously, having just come into post a few weeks ago, that's part of the work that's ongoing at the moment, is for me to go through any of these outstanding dates, and we'll update them and look at reasonable timescales and get those updated. Okay,
so can we have an update then to September meeting on progress there? That would be good.
Yeah, absolutely, that's fine.
Okay, that was the key issue I had on the report. The rest, there is progress being made, and again, we come back to some of the issues around integration scheme, etc., that we've talked about. So I'm happy to approve this unless anyone has any other comments. No. Okay. Item 12 then is internal audit self-assessment.
Thank you. This report, Chair, is for noting and to note the intention to review the recommendations and bring a report back to the September committee. Internal Audit carried out a review of the self-assessment checklist as required by SIP for guidance for audit committees. As I mentioned at item 10 previously, the progress of this review addresses some of the outstanding items in the governance statement improvement actions. The findings and recommendations are attached to Appendix 1 to the report. The review considered the areas set out at section 3.2 in the covering report. The audit committee members are suitably qualified and trained with evaluation in place for the committee and its members. Terms of reference clearly outline the roles and responsibilities and reporting arrangements. That an annual work plan is in place. That processes for tracking and reporting decisions. That regular self-assessments are carried out and actioned on. A few of the more notable recommendations relate to membership of the audit committee, the terms of reference and associated wording, and comments in regard to the annual governance statement and annual assurance statements. The conclusion set at 4.1 sets out the intention to review the findings and recommendations as part of the IJB development session towards the end of August, and to bring back a highlight report to the next audit committee with a fuller update to follow thereafter. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, there are quite a number of recommendations. most of which are things we have kind of discussed from time to time, although not taken action on. So it will be good to get movement on these, as you say. Jocelyn?
Yes, thanks, Chair. It was just really a comment. I think for me, some of these things are kind of housekeeping things that will be quite easy to sort out. I think for me, the important thing is the membership of this committee and making sure that, we're getting sufficient challenge and scrutiny through the committee. I had a bit of a worry earlier that we weren't quorate. So I think, yeah, definitely for me, that's the really important point, is getting that spread of, the skill sets and having a wider membership. Thank you.
No, indeed. Gail, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, just to agree with that, and I think the work in terms of the integration scheme will help, because at the moment we just have 6 IJB voting members. The proposal is that move up to 8. So obviously, if we've got more members, we can think about potentially having more members on this equivalent, or this committee, or whatever goes forward. But we'll discuss that. Be one of the key things that we'll discuss during the IJB workshop late in August, in terms of how do we make sure that the committees are doing the best they can to support the IJB.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is an issue, and I know that the small number of voting members has been the cause of this. But it's always struck me as odd to have a committee of 2 voting members, which, I mean, in itself effectively means the chair has absolute control, because in a tied situation you have the casting vote anyway. But to have a quorum of 1 member just seems really odd for a committee. But as you say, that's one we will come back to. And there are a number of issues around the terms of reference, which again will fall out of the review of the integration scheme. So I think this is a good piece of work, and will bring a number of issues hopefully to conclusion once we've had that wider discussion. So on that basis, I'm happy to note the report for now. And we'll move on to item 13, which is the internal audit of strategic plan.
Excuse me just for 1 second. My note has disappeared on this one.
Sure.
I'm just going to get up in front of my screen here, sorry. It's obviously still sitting in the printer, my apologies. All right, it's just taking me a wee second to find it here. So the Audit Committee has been asked to note the contents of this report and note the audit recommendations set out on page 6 of Appendix 1 and the management response action required. The review considered whether the strategic plan is innovative and adequately incorporates elements such as realistic medicine service transformation and efficiency savings, the impact of COVID, whether it aligned with strategies being developed by partner bodies, the needs of staff, IT, estates and other resource requirements, whether the strategic plan prioritisation of financial and workforce sustainability and delivery, risks to the strategic plan's delivery have been identified, and that the strategic plan outlines arrangements for performance reporting on delivery. As stated, and the conclusion is it's stated at section 2 of the report at Appendix 1, the audit opinion of the level assurance given is substantial, stating that a sound system of governance, risk management and control exists, with internal controls operating effectively and being consistently applied. Section 2 also details 1 action point given the current financial challenges faced by the IJB, which we've discussed on a number of occasions today, to review areas which could either no longer be deliverable or delayed until a later date to ease current financial pressures. And the Chief Officer, along with the management team, are committed to the delivery of agreed savings and the longer term financial sustainability of the HSCP, which Gail's obviously alluded to today as well. This will be actioned via planned development sessions and through a refresh of management governance arrangements. Future budget development will be carried out in line with strategic plan, and any revisions will be considered as part of the planning process. I'm happy to take any questions on that one as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jocelyn, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just very briefly, thanks, Chair. I mean, I think just to say that you know, we give this a level of or an opinion of substantial assurance, which is quite unusual. That doesn't happen often, so it's a very positive report. We were happy with the process for development of the plan, with the delivery plan and the elements that includes, and the monitoring. And yeah, we had a really robust management response to the one moderate recommendation that we made. The only thing I would also point out is that we commented, and it's really just a kind of a note of warning about the whole system transformation strategic risk, which is currently scored at 12. And that's all about delivering transformational change across the whole system. It's got a target score of 3 at the moment, and we were just making the point that that's going to be challenging. That will be tough to get that down to the target score in any kind of reasonable time scale. So that was really just a comment on top of Marie's summary. Thank you.
No, I think that's a fair comment. Although, I mean, my approach to this is that the financial situation we're in just re-emphasises the case for substantial change, because we simply can't keep doing what we're doing with continually decreasing budgets and expect it to work. It's time that we think about doing things radically differently, and that transformation is very much needed. Yep, substantial assurance, as you say, is rare but always welcome. I think the notes you've made there are entirely reasonable, and I'm glad to see there is a good management response to that. So I'm happy to note this report if there are no other comments of yours. Okay, I think that's us to the end of the agenda. Is there any other business anyone wants to raise? Nope. Not seeing anything. Okay, thanks everyone. It's been a relatively short meeting, but hopefully a productive one. I think there's a lot of work going on there, and a lot of work to do over the next year, which we all know about, but we have some plans in place to do it. So thank you everyone. See you all soon.